I feel like I record so infrequently these days that every time I start a video, I feel like I need to explain where I've been. So for this iteration of what I've been up to for the last couple months, as some of you from the Discord may know, I was commissioned by my employer to basically design what were effectively like microbe, like bacteria, fungi, microbes, like Pokemon trading card type things, as an educational tool and like a kind of fun marketing swag thing to give out at, conferences and whatnot. So that is, of course, in addition to my day job, which is being a molecular biologist. And so basically after I get home from my 9 to 5, I spend, effectively 200-300 hours over the last couple months creating these cards, doing the research, basically drawing cartoons for bacteria, not just like, look at it under a microscope and draw that in cartoon form, like actually kind of personifying them and representing sort of what they do, that type of thing. So it obviously took quite a bit of time. I'm done with that. Those are off to the printer, so I am a free man again, or at least as free as anybody can be in this kind of economy. So I'm itching to get back to recording. I actually sat down to record a little bit of RimWorld and realized I had no real concept of where we left off. So I'm hoping to get back to that soon, but I need a little bit more time to wrap my brain around where we left off, what we were doing, how to get back into the swing of it. And so in the interest of just getting you guys some content and scratching the itch I've had to play this game on the side, we're going to do a little bit of Age of Wonders 4. So I actually played a ton of Age of Wonders 3. I was really excited to hear 4 came out. So far I've loved it. I don't know if you guys have checked it out. If you have, let me know what you think. But if you're not familiar with Age of Wonders 4, you can think of it as basically Civilization, the 4X games, combined with like Heroes of Might and Magic. So essentially you have the typical, hex-based 4X game that's relatively unchanged from the Civ formula, except for your sort of leaders are represented as characters on the map. You're not playing as sort of this like historical leader that's like a godlike overbeing who basically only exists in diplomacy screens. The heroes are actually characters that take place in battles and have RPG elements. They level up, they can equip items, things like that. So that's where you kind of get the Heroes of Might and Magic influence. The battles, unlike in Civ, where it's basically two units kind of bumping their faces together on the overland map, there is actually a turn-based tactical battle component to this game. And it's pretty much exactly what you expect. It's not doing anything groundbreaking on that front. But the combination of those two things I really enjoy. It adds more depth to sort of the typical Civ formula where really it's all about the meta game. Here there's more nuance because you can have an overmatched army and still win based on your tactical abilities and how you implement certain spells and things like that. So it adds a nice layer of sort of strategy and skill going on. Initially I was going to kind of walk you guys through all the components of this game, but it's quite expansive and we could do a whole hour without even getting into a campaign. So rather than do that, I'm just going to very briefly walk you kind of through my choices for this campaign, and then we're going to dive in and everything else can be explained as we go. So we'll jump into a new game, and you can create a custom realm or choose one of the pre-made ones. I've been playing around with custom realms and I generally prefer those just because there's some things about the base game I like and some I don't, and through a custom realm you can really tailor that to your preferences. So as you can see, I've very meticulously labeled my custom realms here. This is the one I think I want, except for some things are wrong, so we'll change that real quick. Effectively, you have a bunch of different options, modifiers you can choose here. Again, I don't want to get too deep into this, but I do suggest choosing something like continents or islands or one of the divides just to kind of break up the terrain. Otherwise, I find that the game can get muddled really quickly because you'll run into other factions almost immediately, and it doesn't really give you time to grow and sort of build up before that sort of tension comes in, and then you're basically just spending the whole campaign treading water. Versus with some natural break in the terrain to separate the factions, you get a little bit more time to breathe, kind of flesh out your faction, and then you can start clashing, which is the more kind of measured pace that I prefer. I like Overgrown Realm because it's going to give me more forest areas, but you have your pick of a few various realms. Forming Realm is cool because it's a little bit more dynamic. You're going to start with desolate areas that eventually turn into forests or mountains or whatever, but it definitely adds another layer to the game because things that were once areas that you couldn't build on before will very suddenly become like really prosperous territory that you want to conquer. And so if you're looking to have like a really I keep using dynamic, but that's probably the best word to describe this. If you're looking for a really dynamic campaign, that's probably the best choice. Highlands, I think, is also a good choice. Going back to kind of the continents and divide thing, it helps break up the territory and add a little bit more natural kind of barriers between you and other factions. It also adds nice natural defensive choke points so that you can kind of funnel enemies through a specific space if you want to bolster your defenses, things like that. But I'm going to stick with the Overgrown Realm for now. It's going to give us more forests and less of like deserts and things like that. This option here is just going to dictate what most of the random mobs around the map look like. So you can have mostly undead roaming the map and guarding the different resource points, or you can have magic creatures, whatever you prefer. Basically, the one I've chosen here is just going to make us see more plant and animal units. Not going to get into this, but Pretender Kings just adds an additional win condition to your campaign where basically there's 3 factions kind of duking it out, and your involvement in that can also dictate whether or not you win the campaign. Bannerlords is going to boost our abilities, or the benefits, I should say, of interacting with free cities, which are non-major faction NPC factions, like basically minor factions, I guess is how I should have described that. Minor factions that only hold a single city. You can vassalize them, you can integrate them into your kingdom. That's a cool way to basically get different culture and different race units into your armies. And just generally adds a little bit more flavor to the game. So this is going to increase the bonuses of interacting with them. I also have Disdain for Evil. Grievances are something that you accumulate when you have negative encounters with other factions. So if, for example, I were to trespass into somebody else's lands through their borders, they would gain a grievance against us. The sort of amount of grievance is dictated by the severity of what you did. So obviously if you declare war without justification and wipe out all their armies, they're going to have a lot of grievances. If you just step a toe over their border and then leave, they'll gain a little bit, but nothing significant. What this does is it basically gives anybody who is not evil, actually it might even give other evil factions grievances, but if you're an evil faction, if you have evil alignment, everybody will gain free grievances against you. So it's much easier for them to declare war against you, essentially. By and large, everybody starts as neutral unless certain traits you've chosen in your faction creation predispose you to good or evil. But generally, most people are going to start neutral. So this isn't going to immediately let you declare war against everybody, but it will very quickly allow you to kind of go after certain factions if they are indeed evil. And then the last one here is Wondrous Pass. It's just going to add more ancient wonders to the map. So player distance, I like to go far. I like to, again, have a little bit more time to build up before we start worrying about fighting other people for territory. Usually, I think with far and 9 players, I'm able to build like my second and working on a third city by the time I start kind of butting into other factions. If you do standard, your second city is probably going to be bordering an AI player's second city. And if you do close, the moment you kind of start exploring outside your starting city, you're going to run into somebody else. That kind of helps you gauge that. So I like far. We'll do 9 players just to get the biggest game possible. And then if you want to actually customize what factions you're going up against, you need to go to advanced settings here. It took me some time to figure that out because it's not super intuitive that it's actually hidden behind there. So if you go to factions, you can actually choose all 9 of the factions that we'll be playing against. So of course the first one is yourself. You always get to choose your own faction, obviously, but this lets us pick the other 8 too. I unironically really like the default human leader guy. He just kind of has this like hard ass King Arthur kind of look to him. So when I saw this, I immediately thought like, what if King Arthur, but like a Warhammer level of like religious zealotry going on? And of course in this game that's very much possible. So I made a custom version of his faction, which is still basically the same thing. I went with the white and red dragon to get that kind of Arthur vibe going. Of course the colors are flipped, but that's because I want the main color to be red so that our clothing is red. I'm not going to go into all the faction customization. If you guys want to see it, we can do a different episode on it, but I could again do a whole video dedicated to that basically. So Alfred Elderstone, definitely not Arthur, is going to be our faction here. We're feudal humans. Actually, let me hover over this real quick just so you can see my choices. So we have 4 order affinity, 2 nature affinity. We'll get more into that in the actual campaign. Our starting tome is going to be the Tome of Faith, which is also the default human one, but we're going to go real hard into the zealotry one as well. I'm just going to start with Tome of Faith so we can get the army heal right out of the gate. Destined humans is going to be the same as kind of default humans. We have fast recuperation, which means we just generate more hit points, and we're adaptable, so we gain experience from fighting a little bit quicker. We are a feudal culture. We get a little bit more food income. Units benefit from close formations with Stand Together, and we get the feudal lord perk as well, which is sort of synergistic with Stand Together. Basically, Stand Together means if all your units, well, any units who are adjacent gain a slight bonus to, I think, attack damage. Feudal Lords means that if your hero is one of those units in adjacency, they gain, I think, an additional bonus to attack, and I believe like 1 extra damage resist or something. As far as our 2 kind of traits, we are Chosen Uniters, so that gives us an automatic plus 10 to our predisposition toward a good alignment. We also gain an additional 20 income from our vassals. I find that most games I end up with like 2 vassals, so that's effectively plus what, 40%. That's probably not how that math works, but anywho, given the amount of vassals I have, typically that income is significant. And then we gain +1 XP rank to our frontline fighters. We also gain an extra frontline fighter at the start of the game, and a little bit of diplomatic bonus. Adept Settlers is my other choice. Chosen Uniters is actually one of the default traits for the human faction. The other one is, I think, something building related. I prefer Adept Settlers for the reason that it gives me an additional +1 to the city cap. City cap is murderous to your income when you exceed it. It'll really, really hamstring your gold reserves if you go over it. And so while you can spend Imperium to increase that cap, it's pretty expensive. This lets me kind of deal with that later when I have more Imperium to throw around. It's also going to make founding cities cost me less Imperium, so it helps me save up and work toward that. And probably the biggest reason I take this perk is that the newly founded cities gain 1 population. That means that without spending any Imperium to artificially boost my population, right out of the gate, my cities can basically annex 2 surrounding territories rather than just 1. And so when you're kind of contesting with other factions for territory, being able to pop down a city and immediately grab 2 areas really helps kind of solidify your borders around them. And of course we gain +1 at our starting city as well, which is nice. So again, that's my faction choice there. We're gonna go with kind of some of the usual suspects here. I've basically made custom versions of all the default ones, or not necessarily all, but all the major ones. So I made my own orc faction, etc., etc. It might be nice to have like 1 other competing human group, or maybe 1 or 2. So I've made kind of a more evil human faction here. They're not necessarily evil, but they're like lawful neutral. They're, let's see, imperialists. So they like to conquer, basically. And they're less inclined toward diplomacy. So what I find is with these guys, they're almost always the first faction to declare war, and it kind of helps stir the pot a little bit. So they'll be kind of our competing human thing. Since they're not necessarily evil, we can still conduct diplomacy with them, but you know, we'll see what happens. And then there's some other cool human factions. Let's see. There's like the human paladins, so they're kind of a more, almost like an elf-like human faction. They're much more inclined to magic. And they obviously have a ton of order as well. So they're kind of like the... Actually, I would say the other faction is like chaotic neutral, and these guys might be more like lawful neutral to lawful good. So we'll throw them in. That'll be our 3 human factions. Again, we have 9, so we still have 6 to play with. We'll do... I think I have an elf faction. Let's see. Yeah, these are your pretty standard vanilla elves. Definitely not Galadriel here. We'll throw her in there. Let's see. I think I have like evil elves. I keep forgetting to go to custom. Let's see. This is like my definitely not, or like maybe great value Sauron type of character here. They are naturally inclined toward evil. So pretty much if we throw him into this campaign, he's going to be our enemy. Which, you know, makes it a little bit predictable, but at least that way we know it's not gonna be a campaign that ends with everybody allied and just whoever builds the biggest magic building first, or whatever the other win condition is. So again, that kind of helps stir the pot.
Your journey starts.
Let's see. We have a couple orc factions. So the brutal orcs. This brutal orc faction is actually the one I was playing as previously. That's why you may notice this is the guy who was on the splash screen. That's because that was the character I was playing as in my last loaded save. There's also this faction here. We'll go with these guys. Let's see. It's going to ask me to... One thing the game doesn't like is if you have the main colors overlap. So what I need to do is go to appearance. And hopefully like orange is available. Let's see if it'll let me do orange.
Your journey begins.
Okay, yeah, she's yellow, orange. He's orange, yellow. What else do we got here? We got dwarves somewhere. Yeah, pretty standard dwarves. We'll throw them in. Have some underground factions. Let's see. There's also goblins. We could do goblins. We've got crusading croakers. That's fun. There's shamanist orcs. So if you want like a less typical evil raiding, destroy things orcs, they're more just like naturalists and kind of neutral, I suppose. They still have some kind of raider-ish traits. Fiendish rodents. Yeah, let's throw them in. Basically Skaven. And so what's the last one going to be? Let's see. I have the wholesome halflings with like Hobbit Gandalf leading the way. Let's see, druidic humans. We have enough humans already. Again, these are just custom factions I made, playing around with the faction creator. So there's also a whole library of default ones. Let's see, we got Elven Flame Worshippers, Shadowborn Elves, we already picked them. Ashborn Hedonists. That might be... Oh, also there's the Leonine Conquerors, so we want lions. Yeah, let's get some cat people going on in here. What? Oh, crap. Okay, sure.
Your journey begins.
If I say onward, I think it just does it anyway. Yeah. So I guess you can just be like, whatever, I don't care. Okay. I think the rest of this is fine. So let's just dive in. All right, so here we are at our starting point. Hopefully we got a good one. This is a summary of all the choices that went into our faction, just in case you forgot what you picked, or you picked a faction that was, you know, preset. And we start with 2 spells. So Call to Glory is a buff spell. It's going to boost morale and give 1 strengthened. Strengthened ups your damage by 10%, and it can go up to 50%. I don't know how that's calculated. I guess it says it stacks, so I assume maximum is plus 50. But, you know, depending on how you calculated that, it could be the first one does 110%, and then the next one does plus 10% of the 110%. Right. So I'm not sure how the math works there, but it's probably 150 maximum. And then Wrath of the Faithful is basically just like a smite spell. You do some spirit damage from the sky. Depending on what you're up against, that could actually be quite potent. So 10 damage isn't necessarily a ton, but if you were to cast this on like undead, it would be pretty nasty. Okay, so here we are at Berkshire. That's kind of a weak name, if we're being honest. Flowing Fields, Kingerhelm that's certainly a better name for a capital. Can I not control C in here? Okay. Kingerhelm, let's keep that in mind. Gray Square, Flowing Fields, Greenhold. Emberton. What's this guy's name again? Elderstone. I thought it was Emberstone. Whatever, Emberton's fine. Did it not save that though? Bro, get with the program. Anywho, this is the sort of settlement screen. So when we click on our cities, this is what we're looking at here. There are a couple of, I guess, resources that you should be aware of. The main 3 that are going to affect your cities and the ones that are left of this line here are food, production, and draft. So food is going to affect population. The more food you have, the faster your population will turn over. Each time you gain a population, you get to choose another region to annex. So we have 2, which means we should be able to grab 2 regions right now. And you can spend Imperium, which is this currency here, to attract a quote-unquote attract population. Basically just automatically levels you up to the next one. You can spend Imperium to, again, automatically push you to the next stage and immediately grab another region. So in some instances, it might be worth spending Imperium to snag a region before a competing faction grabs it. Production is going to dictate how quickly you build stuff here. So right now we have very little production, meaning it's going to take quite a long time to build some of these buildings. I like to go workshop early on just because, again, the more production we can accumulate, the faster subsequent projects will go. So while, yes, it's nice to have gold, that plus 10 to gold isn't going to have as much of an immediate impact as the plus 10 to production in my mind. Same goes for draft, and the fact that you get both from one building is nice. So we'll grab that. And then draft is going to affect how quickly you can build units. So immediately I'm going to queue up a scout, and after that we'll probably try to fill out the rest of our army. We have 1 scout, but there's quite a lot of map to cover, so we're going to need more than 1. Gold, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. You spend this on all sorts of things. Mana is used to cast spells. So if we want to cast strategic spells, we can do so from here. This will also show us our tactical spells, but tactical spells are only castable in tactical battles. And then, of course, active will show you all of the sustained spells that you're running. So there's buff spells that can be applied strategically throughout the whole campaign. So you cast it on the overland map, and that stays in effect, as opposed to a tactical buff spell, which only takes place or is only active for that battle. And then, blah, 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 where were we? The last one is knowledge. Knowledge is going to affect how quickly you turn over your tome research. There's effectively two different types of research in this game. One is time-based, and that's going to be your tome or arcane research. Again, this is dependent on the tome that we chose, and it will randomly give us 3 to choose from. And you can see how long each will take here. I'm going to start with Army Heal. It's the whole reason I chose that tome. After we complete a certain number of arcane research projects, we'll be able to choose a new tome. And I don't recall if I mentioned this, but there are 6 tiers to each tome. So we're starting with kind of the faith tome. There are 6 tiers of faith. We're not obligated to continue in that if we don't want to. We could immediately jump over to necromancy if we wanted, and then exclusively pursue necromancy from there. Or we could do necromancy and then pyromancy. Basically, you can choose the tomes in almost any order you want. There are some requirements to unlocking subsequent tiers of tomes, but they're not necessarily locked into tome type. So you don't need to research necromancy 1, 2, and 3 in order to research necromancy 4, if that makes sense. But you do need to research a certain number of tiers 1, 2, and 3 to unlock tier 4 of anything, if that makes sense. So that's the first type of research. The second, which it's not going to let me do just yet, but Empire Development is a tech tree that does not require any sort of time to research, although apparently it takes 2 turns to open the screen. This one allows you to basically buy upgrades with Imperium. So there's no research going on there. It's literally just unlocks, and the currency is Imperium. Okay, so let's see. We can annex our first province. I'm generally inclined to go with like forests first. We have choices of what we want to build depending on what type of terrain we're looking at. If we're looking at a forest, we can build farms, which is going to give us more food. Again, faster growth. We can build foresters, which are going to give us a little bit of food and a little bit of production. And then we can build a quarry, which is all production. Depending on what's present, you may get a bonus to a certain type of thing. So down here, for example, there's an iron deposit. So when annexed, it's going to give us plus 10 production. It doesn't actually matter what we build there. It's going to get plus 10 regardless. But generally, it's good to combine similar types of resources. So you don't have to build a quarry here, but a quarry might synergize the best. You could build a farm here and get 5 food, 10 production if you wanted. It really just depends what your need is. But as you go along, we're not going to have any yet, but there are buildings that will pop up in other that are sort of more advanced buildings that will provide bonuses based on what's surrounding them. So there's like a recruitment camp, or I think it's called like a levy camp or something. It's going to give you, I think, like 5 food for every adjacent farm. So the adjacency and what you have where is going to matter as much as how much it synergizes with the actual thing you're building on. So there's, again, layers to all of this. Here, I think we'll throw down a quarry, because again, we'll get the plus 15 to building there. That's going to give us the biggest immediate boost. I guess I don't get another one. That's fine. And then we have 2 movement orders to issue. So If we want, we can go clear off this NPC army here. And I think we'll do that just because you always want to be leveling your main hero. And then we also have a little bit of mana stashed here. I'm going to ask my scout to go grab that. So we have some sheep, which are going to give an extra 10 to whatever we build in that area. Let's see. I like to scan the map and look for watchtowers. Like this, for example. If you move onto a watchtower, it's going to give you a much larger visibility radius in that area than what your character can kind of achieve on their own. What's going on here? And the cool thing about the Fog of War on these maps is you can still see where, you know, every major thing is. So there's definitely a watchtower here. It's not trying to mislead you. There's definitely a watchtower there if it shows it. But obviously the more detailed stuff is still quite hidden. So I thought I saw one. Shoot, I lost the other one. Oh, there it is. Well, let's just start moving south with our scout, and then we can choose if we want to go east or west. But there was a watchtower either way. And then we'll get into our first combat right out of the gate here. So it's saying this is risky. I would not suggest that you ever auto-resolve a risky battle. If it says low risk, you're almost guaranteed to win. You may lose a unit, however, and then if it says no risk, then you should be pretty safe to just auto-resolve those every single time. Something else to consider is if you do auto-resolve, you still always have the option of replaying that manually. So if you go, oh, I think that auto-resolve was bullshit, you can still take care of it. So actually, I'll show you that now. With a risky battle, we'll do auto combat. We still won, and we actually didn't lose any units. So maybe I will just accept that. We'll get into a tougher battle. And so we gained a reward. We have a warg that we can use. Let's open the hero screen. I'm not actually going to equip this on my main hero, but we'll show you kind of the RPG elements here. So you get a primary weapon. Depending on that weapon, you may get to use something in your offhand. For a sword, you can carry a shield. For lances, you do not get anything. There's also a lot of two-handed weapons. Some weapons also prevent you from using a mount. So with this configuration, we can use a mount. But if we had like a two-handed axe or a two-handed greatsword, we would be resigned to being on foot. There are some different equipment slots here. One thing to note, because I am like a customization junkie, I know some of you probably are too, the weapons shown here actually do change the appearance of what your character is carrying. So if you pick up a unique sword and equip it, it should reflect in the appearance here. And same for the shield. Also same for the mount. So if we wanted to... Oh, where's the warg? Maybe he can't equip it. Anywho. Same for the mount. However, the items here, so like your armor slots and then your accessory slots, those don't actually change the character's appearance. So even if you equip a legendary helmet, it's not going to change what your character's head looks like. Now, if you want to change what your character looks like at any point, you can go to adjust appearance and you get the same character editor that you would have got back in the faction creation. So if you recruit an NPC lord that looks ridiculous, you are always welcome to jump in here and kind of fix their appearance as you like. I just caught a glimpse of my cat trying to sneak into our towel cupboard, and I don't think she knows that I'm watching. And another cool thing is at any point you can change their name and their title. So if you recruit another character that's also a king and you're like, no, I only got one king here, at any point you can tweak that. So that's the customizations options there. It's pretty good for a game of this type. I was certainly satisfied by it, and I'm definitely like a character creation junkie. Oh, my bad. So that wasn't a mount. There are warg mounts. That's why I thought it was an item we could equip, but this is actually just a unit. So do I want a warg in my army? Yeah, I think for now we'll put it in the army. What I tend to do with units like that, it just gives me like free kind of crappy animal units, is I'll just turn them into scouts and cut them loose. You can click enable auto explore here and they'll just wander and find stuff. One thing I also really like about that feature is the say the little item stash that was here on the ground, your scouts will automatically find and pick those up. So you don't have to worry about missing out on like resources or XP by doing that. They'll actually go out of their way to grab those. So that's it for our turn. Let's get things rolling. Okay, so new turn. What do we want to do here? There should be some units here for us to fight and there. So we'll start making our way over there. Also, this little red haze indicates that there is an enemy mob spawner in the area. So what that means is every so often it will spawn an army that will march toward our capital and basically try to wreck our shit. So we want to eventually deal with that. Usually they're guarded by a pretty decent force, so that might be a good battle for us. But either way, we'll want to deal with that sooner than later because they're going to start coming after us. The armies like the one that we fought over here, or the ones sitting on like that mononode, those don't ever move. They'll just stay there until the end of the game. But anything coming from these like bandit camps will actually seek you out. Let's see. How far was that other one? I guess, yeah, let's go this way. Oh, we have water. So yeah, these types of units or these types of enemy armies won't ever like move. You can stand adjacent to them and they won't attack you. If you stand adjacent to the, I'm going to call them bandit camps. If you stand adjacent to a bandit camp, they will come after you. And yeah, that evil presence thing is what's indicating that this is in fact a enemy spawner. All right, so day 3 dawns, and we now have access to the Empire Development tree. So, again, this is a tech tree, but not one that requires active research. It's strictly purchases. Some of these can be purchased multiple times. So, for example, the expanded governance, which increases your city cap. Right now we're at 4. But if we wanted to go to 5, 6, 7, we can spend Imperium multiple times to do that. However, it's 200 for the first one, and it does increase each time, so it might be 500 for the next one. And there's a few things called rights as well. They're indicated by this kind of fancier border. A right is sort of like a spell that is purchased with Imperium. So this particular one, the Right of Last Stand, would cause each of our cities to lose 1 population, but would summon 3 tier 1 units. So basically we're spending a population to get like an immediate militia to defend a city type of thing. And we can do that multiple times, but there is a cooldown obviously, and it does cost Imperium. The rest of these that are actually that one can be done multiple times. I'm not sure why it's a circle. The rest of these are basically a single time unlock. So in this case, basic seafaring, we want to be able to travel on water. If we spend 50 Imperium, it's unlocked, right? One time thing. So that I'm a little bit confused. That might be a bug or just an oversight. It should be a different symbol. It should be that symbol. So depending on your affinities, you have access to different ones. Potentially through tome research, you can unlock all the affinities. You're never going to have enough Imperium to unlock all the things within them, so spreading yourself too thin isn't going to get you very far. However, there are certain unlocks even very early in certain trees that are worth pursuing. So unless you're role-playing somewhere where nature doesn't make a lot of sense, getting nature, especially early, is really good for the simple fact that this Soil Tenders perk costs 75 Imperium to give every farm an additional 5 food. Farms by default give 5 food, so that's doubling the amount of food from every farm that you have. which is going to go a long way to improving how quickly you gain population. So that one is one I think is worth getting in effectively every playthrough. Unless, again, you're role-playing somewhere where, like, you're making a choice not to do that. But if you're just trying to, play optimally, I think that's a really good one to pursue. This one here, the general one, you unlock by default, so that's not one you have to worry about. And then, of course, we went order affinity, so we have access to this one. I tend to go Materium pretty early as well. There's some cool unlocks that you can get. This one gives you Breastplate of the Champion, which is a really good item. And again, you're just paying 150 Imperium to have like a tier 4 torso slot item, which tier 4 is pretty damn high. So it's like, why wouldn't you go after that one? What else? Let's see. There's some good ones in Chaos. I haven't really explored the the Shadow or Astral too much. Something to note about these two. We'll get into it later. Okay. So let's see. We actually cannot explore on water yet because we haven't unlocked the seafaring yet. So we have to go west. And let's push a little bit further in. Gonna inch my way over there just because I don't know what we're getting ourselves into. That's not too bad. I think I'd like one more turn before we get into the fight, though, just so that this guy can heal. So we'll wait right here and end our turn. So we unlocked a new Empire development skill. I'm guessing it's the seafaring. Oh no, it's actually in order. So pacification. Destroying an infestation or conquering a free city grants a stacking plus 300 relations to all other free cities for 10 turns. That costs us 50 Imperium. So an infestation, I believe, refers specifically to the bandit camps. Which means, so we would gain it for destroying this group, but not necessarily that group. If that makes sense. Which is a little bit unfortunate because we don't have any minor factions being interacted with yet where we would gain that bonus. So I'm not going to waste the Imperium right now because honestly it wouldn't do anything for me. Unless you uncover one right now. Doesn't look like it. So yeah, we'll just skip it. And let's get into this battle. So this one's risky. I'm just going to fight it. Alright. So now we're into the tactical battles here. One thing I really enjoy about these is the diversity of maps that you'll find. Some are very open and definitely favor units with more mobility. And then some, like this, have a lot of obstacles that create choke points, which kind of favor like a more shield wall type tactics. And I find that having a good army comp that has a mix of both is generally the best strategy to kind of deal with all the different situations you might find. I like to have kind of like 3 to 4 units that form up kind of my core shield wall, especially if you're playing with a faction like this one that gets a bonus for them standing close together. You kind of want to play into that, obviously. We'll march these guys over here. We're going to try to kind of blockade that. And then having a couple units that can deal damage from back ranks or swing around flanks is useful as well, because obviously things like flanking damage exist. And then, of course, you have like attacks of opportunity. So if you can pin a unit down and then dump a bunch of arrows over the top, it's a great way to take out a lot of different enemies. So yeah, let's just kind of maneuver on over here and we'll end our turn. Actually, before we do that, this is where you would cast your tactical spells from, so it's the same spot as the strategic spells on the overland map. However, you cannot cast spells on your first turn unless in the Empire development tree under the astral affinity, there is a perk that allows you to cast on the first turn. So if your strategy if your tactic in these tactical battles is to just overwhelm people with magic, and again, like the broader magic here, not like a magic coming from a single character, then you probably want to go astral early to unlock that, so that you can do like first turn alpha strikes on people. You guys can just chill. It'll automatically put people into defensive mode if they have action points and stuff left, so you don't need to worry about like min-maxing every little turn. It will make sure that they're spent appropriately. I find that being the initial attacker is rarely ideal. So the way that attacking works in this game is, depending on how many action points the unit has, you may get up to 3 attacks. So if I were already in adjacency with this unit, I would get to attack them 3 times, and they get 1 retaliation attack. They may get 0 depending on certain perks, whatever. There are ways to mitigate retaliations, but we would have up to 3 attacks. However, in moving this far, we're probably only going to get 1 attack. And so what I find generally is that it's better to eat that first attack from a distance. So if they move across here, they're going to hit us once, we hit them once, and it's a wash. However, if we move over there, same deal. We hit them once, they hit us once, it's a wash. But then it's their turn and they get to hit us 3 times. So I would rather eat that first attack and then immediately get to attack 3 more times. Facing is also a thing. So one thing the game will not do for you is adjust facings. If a unit gets attacked and it's not being engaged anywhere else, it will turn to face the enemy. But it's better that you have them faced toward oncoming attackers initially, because you can still get flanked on the initial attack. So I think the AI does a good job of standing just outside like archer ranges, as you can see there. They're literally parked right outside of it. So what we might want to do is let's push each one of these up 1. That'll let my archer move to here. And then we can get... Oh, apparently this blocks line of sight. That's unfortunate. Okay, well, it is what it is. I'm also going to get this unit of Bannermen in here. They have a lot of buff and healing abilities, but most of them require them to be in adjacency. So I want them kind of in the center of my formation, whatever it is. Interestingly, they also have a ranged attack. It's not as good, or it doesn't go as far as the archers, but they basically shake their poles and it shoots a magic missile at people. Actually, it says right there we have these guys in range, so let's do it. Oh, cool, and we actually sundered their defense, so it means they're going to be more susceptible to oncoming damage for the next couple turns. It looks like they are trying to flank me, so I'm going to bring Alfred over here, and you guys can kind of hold up on that flank for now. We're able to cast spells now. You only get 1 per turn. Is it worth trying to chip away at somebody's health? Not really. I mean, 7's not putting a significant dent into anybody's health bar. So I think in that case, we'll cast a buff. And the best I'm going to be able to do is get like 4. So let's get... Yeah, I think let's get these units. I don't really care about the wargs. And my hero's tanky enough to just deal with it himself. Oh, these guys are ranged and melee. Okay. So, obviously, different symbols for different unit types. If it's 2 crossed swords, it means they are melee exclusively. If they have the sword and arrow like these 2 did, it means they can do both melee and ranged. And if they have a bow and arrow like this, it means they can only do ranged. So these archers cannot attack when they've been engaged in melee combat. They don't have like a weak melee attack. They have literally no melee attack, which means you need to be very careful about, you know, them getting flanked and things like that. Also, I don't believe hybrid units can do ranged attacks if they've been engaged in melee, so we probably want to get out here and hit them. Let's start with the wargs. 13 damage there. And that'll help take some of the pressure off of our pikemen. Over here, I think it's more important that we tie up this unit than it is that we flank them. The damage wasn't that great, if we're being honest. You can move up and do 22 there. So they'll get 1 attack, they get to retaliate, and then we get 2 more. Oh, actually only 1 because we had to move. And you guys can attack 3 times, and because the unit has already spent its retaliation, they don't get a retaliation on this one. So that's the reason I did that other unit first, is they had more health in order to absorb the retaliation. And since they didn't move first, they get 3 attacks. So that was 2, and then this is 3. I would always recommend in this type of game to focus fire units and to eliminate units whenever possible. Even if it's only a little bit of damage, units do weaken as they take damage. You can see, you know, my pikeman in this group is down to 3 men versus the other one has 5. That kind of does reflect their ability to do damage. So this unit will do less damage than that one. Same is true for this unit of ravens that's down to, or I guess they're like vultures or something, whatever bird this is. It's not going to do a ton of damage because it's taken so much damage. But if these 2 guys move and shoot that unit, and then this gets, you know, even 2 HP or 3 HP, it might be enough to kill my unit. So it's always better in my mind to take units off the board whenever you can. And of course, you know, they might have a healing spell or something, so that unit could be on death's door, and the next turn it's at half HP and wrecking your shit again. So yeah. Man, they keep parking right outside my range. I think we're gonna have to move our archers over here. And we got 90% there, so let's do that. They're only gonna get 1 shot though. But next turn they'll get 3 shots, and that'll do substantially more damage. And then we'll let the bannerman finish that guy off. Oh, they grazed him. God damn it. So grazed is partial damage. It doesn't do the full amount. That's where something like Wrath of the Faithful really comes into its own. That's why I like having this spell, is for situations like that where I thought I was going to be able to take a unit off the board and I couldn't. Well, here is an additional 8 to 10 more damage just to make sure we actually get them off the board. And, you know, there's several different versions of that kind of nuke spell, but it's good to have one in your back pocket for situations like that. Not that that single vulture was going to do a whole lot, but, you know, you never know. Let's see. That's a pretty good trade. So he's going to do 15, and we got 9 back. Not bad at all. How's our archer looking now? So we can do 30 damage, basically 3 times 10. I like the 90%. Let's make sure we get all 3 of those. We got a graze in there. So we got 25. Still not bad. The wargs can finish them off. 26 or 23. You can do 27. I feel better about the hero eating the retaliation hit, so let's do that. I wish they would fix that. For whatever reason, he puts his sword on his back between every swing. I don't know why he doesn't just keep the damn sword in his hand. Same with the shield. The shield stays on his back too. Just, dude, you're in battle. I don't know if they like forgot to add different animations for battle, and you know, they're using like the more chill overland map animations when they shouldn't be. It just looks a little bit awkward. Okay, so we can get a kill there. I guess let's do that. And then the ward can finish that unit off. It's just going to get one retaliation off first. Oh, you didn't actually get the kill. Okay, that's fine. Let's see. If the ward can get that kill, we can use our spell to just destroy this thing. Otherwise, we might need to call in the bannerman. I don't think there's XP for like actually dealing the killing blow. I think XP is just awarded at the end of battle for like everybody pretty much equally, or you know, there's certain things that dictate some units getting more XP than others, but I don't think it's based on battle performance of that specific unit. And we leveled up. Cool. So let's see. We got 2 rewards from that. Got some food and the Wand of Fire Breath. So wands let you cast specific spells from whichever character is holding them, even if they don't necessarily have access to that type of magic. So let's see. We'll equip the Wand of Fire Breath. And let's take a look at level ups. So in addition to the different skills you can unlock here, there's also signature skills is what they're called. And you get one at every 5th level. And these are like pretty powerful abilities that you basically choose based on affinity. So that is to say, you'll basically get 6, I think it's 6 options at each level, 1 for each affinity thing. So your character can have different affinities than your faction, if that makes sense. For example, our faction affinity is 4 order 2 nature, but our ruler, this guy, is 2 order 2 nature. And if our first signature ability was chaos, he might be 2/2/2. So yeah, the characters can actually differentiate from the faction. It's kind of cool. Let's see. Feudal Lord gives us some different titles. So if we say that he's the Lord of War, he'll gain 5 hit points and 25 move points, 25% more move points. But only one person can hold each Lord title. So only one Lord of War, only one Lord of Production, etc. Warfare is just like pretty standard bonuses, so plus 10 to damage, things like that. If you want the character to be magically inclined, you can unlock different spells and resistances in the battle magic section. And then support is going to improve their abilities as a general. So basically like passive buffs. Not necessarily always passive buffs. Like, for example, it could unlock a healing spell. But things like Stand Together are really good. I tend to go with that one pretty early. So anytime we're in adjacency, we gain plus 20 damage. And we're almost always in adjacency, so kind of a no-brainer there. All right, our other scout just finished. Let's send them northeast. Generally, in previous campaigns, I've started very close to minor factions. So it's a bit odd that I'm not like on top of one this time. I'm kind of hoping there'll be one over in this area. Because again, if we make them a vassal, they'll start paying us like immediately. Which is great. And the sooner we start working with them, the sooner we can start recruiting their units through the Rally of Lieges. And of course, eventually, potentially integrating them. You're a little bit beat up, so let's march you back over here. We get another province. Let's see. We have a gold mine there, so I'm kind of inclined to go with a mine. That'll give me plus 15 to my gold. So let's do that. I like to try to keep it at least at 100. Any less is really scraping by. Lovely. So the game crashed on me. That is one glaring issue with the game right now. Really the only issue that I've really had with the game is it is prone to crashing, especially at the ends of turns and things like that. It's pretty good about keeping autosaves, but as you can see here, the last autosave was actually during our battle. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I'll come back when we've kind of gotten to the point where we would have been at had we not crashed. So this will be our last turn today. Let's make it count. In the next episode, we'll move a lot faster. I'm not going to talk through like every little thing. We'll just kind of jump between significant happenings. But I figured episode 1, new game, new release, I would kind of go through things a little bit more slowly with you guys. It looks like our army heal spell is finished, so we can choose a new research. I don't love any of these. Both of these are good. I don't want to wait 7 turns. So if we want, we can spend 20 mana to reshuffle the 3 we get to choose from. I'm going to do that, and let's see. Convent is going to give us a building that we can build in any city. That'll give us +5 knowledge, +5 mana per turn. Faithful Whispers is a sustained city spell that gains allegiance 30% faster with target cities, or with free cities that we target. I'd like to have that for whenever we encounter one. So let's do Faithful Whispers. Let's see, we finished our workshop. We finished our scout last turn, so we can queue up another unit. You can see now that we've boosted our production significantly, the vendor's down to 3 turns rather than 7. We could also up our town hall to a castle if we were so inclined. I like to rush this one because it gives us access to tier 2 units, which are kind of a big deal. Obviously, if it goes up to tier 6, they're not the biggest deal, but certainly better than a tier 1. It also is going to give us a free, or not a free annex, sorry, but it's going to expand the range in which we can annex from, and then it does give us some free income. Also, it's going to give us access to the special province improvements I was talking about earlier. So all in all, I mean, if we can do this in 4 turns, that's great. It probably will never get shorter than that unless you wait a really long time, and it might get down to like 2. There's certain things you can do to boost certain buildings. So they'll generally tell you at the bottom. If you have a quarry, for example, this one gets boosted. It costs a little bit less and it takes less time. For the library, if we built a forester, that would probably go from, it's 3 turns and 60 gold right now. It would probably be the same as the clergy, 2 and 42, if we built that forester. So what you can try to do is, you know, a lot of these boosts you will hit passively without going out of your way to do it. Like, we're going to build a forester at some point, so we can wait on the library until we build one, and then, you know, it saves us a little bit of gold in a turn. It's not necessarily required, but if you're going to build all of these anyways and the order doesn't strictly matter, then you may as well check them off based on which boost you hit first. So as far as units go, we'll start training an archer. I don't want to go pikeman because in a couple of turns we're going to have access to a better tier 2 melee unit. So I don't see much reason to start cranking those out. It's going to be a while before we can get a better archer. In fact, the faction as we've created it doesn't have access to a better archer. There are still ways to get better units. If we go into here, for example, the chaplain is a unit that we can unlock. So if we do this research, we can now train chaplains in our towns. And it's a tier 2 unit. However, we're not limited in recruiting it to towns that have tier 2 capacity. So once we unlock this, we can actually train chaplains everywhere, even if it's only a tier 1 city, which is cool. That's also true for like tier 5 units. So if you research a tier 5 unit, you can produce it everywhere. What I like to do if I need like a good archer unit is if you go to Tome of Winds, the Zephyr archer is pretty solid, and it's a tier 4 archer. There's also, I believe, a spell. Maybe it's not in this one. It might be in where was it? Enchantment, rock. No, I'm looking for like the faith ones. Blah 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 blah. So yeah, if at any point you want to check out all the different tomes, you can. You're also not, so like when it asks you to choose a new tome to research, you're not limited to the ones that it lets you scroll through. It's going to show you the highest tier that's available. But if at any point, like say I'm at tier 4 research, but I want to go back and do like Zeal. Like I skipped Zeal initially and I just went straight down Faith. If I wanted to go back and do Zeal, I can still do that at any point. I just need to come to this screen. I think it's Inquisition. So we can get a tier 3 hybrid unit, the Inquisitor, that's going to do allow us to do melee and shoot a crossbow. The crossbow has a cooldown. It's not like the archer that can go every turn. But it's still a pretty good unit if you want to be able to do both. I think it's Inquisitor's Zeal. No. I'm blanking on which tome it's in now, but there is a research, an arcane research, that gives you +1 range to your physical range units, so not anything magic, but anything shooting an arrow or a bolt or throwing like a javelin, it'll give them +1 range. So Zephyr archers with that synergizes really, really nicely. And so that's kind of usually where my range caps out. Depending on what factions I'm playing. So if you're going like orcs and you do the typical, where is it? Tome of the Horde, you get a pretty nice tier 2 crossbow, or actually it's only tier 1. Interesting. I thought it was tier 2. The Houndmaster is a range unit with a crossbow. The weak point shot's kind of nice, but it also can summon a Warhound, so you can basically get a free melee summon as well. So arguably, I think this is as good as most tier 2 units, maybe even tier 3. But it's kind of ironic because you think, you know, Horde, orcs, melee in your face, but they actually have one of the better early range units available. There's other ones, of course, but those are the ones I use the most often. You can also unlock different types of spellcasters. So if we were to do pyromancy, you can unlock a pyromancer, which is just like a dedicated fireball thrower. And of course, your heroes can unlock those types of spells too. But if you want to be able to cast them from other people, you'll need to research and recruit the pyromancer. So let's see, that's it for tomes. Let's finish our movement here. I'm trying to get to that watchtower. Once we hit the watchtower, we should potentially find a minor faction. It's unlikely that they're that far away, especially given that we're on a coastline. It means they pretty much have to be to our west. Actually, I didn't zoom out yet. I like to generally get a gauge of where I am on the map. Okay, so we're probably on the western continent, and there's probably a lot of water in the middle. It's good to know. So we'll probably be able to expand west, and we'll run into other factions to the north and south, most likely. Where's my other scout? Let's keep going this way. We'll just keep pushing north along this coastline. Oh, wow, okay. We're on like a little peninsula here. So definitely going to be expanding west, because south is water and a mountain, and north is water, and east is water. And I think you're just going to chill for a sec. So yeah, let's move back toward the base. I'm probably going to be expanding this way. Try to get down. So as a faction, you know, we're going to expand west, right? We're going to build cities west. But for Emberton specifically, I'll be trying to reach each coastline before I worry about pushing too far in that direction. especially with these mountains looming here. Obviously not a lot of place for us to go with that. But if we can get down to the coastline, you can actually annex water. You can build fisheries there. It'll also unlock new building chains in the city, so you can build shipyards and wharfs and things like that. So even though, you know, fisheries, ooh, big deal, I get some food, and it's actually worse food building than the farm. But just having even a single water region annexed gives you a whole new slew of buildings to research, so, or to build, so it's worth pursuing. And then we can cast an army heal. So it's actually going to take a turn to do that. Real briefly, the way this system works is depending on how much of these world map casting points you have, you may be able to insta-cast things. Because my limit right now is quite low, the army heal is going to require effectively all of it, which means it's going to take a turn to wind up, and then we can cast it next turn. If our cap was higher, we might be able to immediately cast it. Depending on what you're trying to cast, obviously, it could take several turns. There are spells that will basically evolve your race, essentially. There's one that will even like turn them in. If you stay on the divinity path long enough, you can turn your whole race into angels. That takes several turns and requires a lot of mana, of course. But, you know, it's basically a permanent race buff to your entire faction. I think with that, that's our turn, so that's also going to be our episode. If you guys enjoy this game, let me know. We'll continue playing. If there's not too much interest, well, maybe take it a few more episodes and see whether it's worth continuing. I love the hell out of the game, so I'm looking for any excuse to play it right now. And as I said, we'll try to get back to RimWorld soon, but I need to figure out where we left off. And there's other stuff I want to do with RimWorld. We'll see how much time I have to get back into modding and whatnot. But we never wrapped up the Star Wars playthrough. I'd like to at least give that some kind of conclusion, even if it's a little bit short-lived, just so it's not left hanging. Obviously, 40K, we're not going to drop that one. I'd like to really see to fruition. And then at a point long ago, I had started making like a kind of late Roman themed mod for RimWorld, and I want to eventually do something with that, because the more medieval or ancient playthroughs I've done in RimWorld have been really popular. You guys seem to really enjoy them. And they're definitely a nice break from the more monotonous kind of typical sci-fi stuff. It's always a little bit more challenging in some aspects doing that, but then also the combat takes on kind of a whole different thing, because now everybody's literally just like smashing together with swords instead of like, you know, firing lasers from 100 tiles away. So it adds a nice change of pace to the game. But I need to obviously do some work before that would be ready. So I don't know where I'm at with that. Just something to consider on the horizon. Anywho, let's leave it there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I had a great time playing with you as always. And I look forward to seeing you guys back here for whatever is next.